everybody. Hi, everyone. I'm Tegan, and this is Sara, and this is our best friend, Tilly Walden.
Hey.
We want to get something out of the, off the table right away. I can't think of the thing.
Off the bat.
Yeah, off the bat, I want to address how far away we are from each other. That is not
planned.
It's only because we'd be sitting in front of the screen. The three of us hate it. We're emotionally attached to each other in a way that we would prefer to be sitting closer.
I wish I could touch you right now.
It's upsetting. It's upsetting how far away we are. It feels like we're fighting.
It does.
It feels like we were like, Tilly can sit on this side.
No, these are the
I'm
roles.
fine. We just were talking backstage about how Tilly and I are new parents, and I need alone time after I put my child to bed, and my wife is always like, we never spend any quality time together, and I'm like, what the hell was the last 12 hours? And Tilly admitted that she's on my wife's side, and so I'm wondering if you should sit next to Tegan, because I need some alone time.
Alone time. No, 12 hours with the
halfway
kid doesn't count. I need special adult time.
So tonight's run of show is, I'm going to tell you, is basically the three of us are going to chat a little bit about our newest book that we did together called Crush, and then we'll talk a little more broadly about junior high. And then we're going to do a reading from the book. We're going to talk about some of the major storylines in Crush and how we pulled those from our lives. And then we're going to confess about our crushes in real life and get Tilly to do the same. And then we've pulled a few questions from the QR code, and we're going to answer them. I will admit that I'm shocked at how few questions you asked. You win the award of audience who clearly had no interest in the three people who came to see.
The event just started. We can't go after them already.
Can't alienate them. No, just letting you know. But let's start with talking about Crush, and we've been doing events, Tilly, so some of the other things that we've talked about on the tour, I want to kind of ask you to get the true answers, because we were basically just answering for you on this tour. But
I like that. I prefer that.
How did the three of us get to work together?
It's wild. We've done 2 books together.
Yeah,
2
how?
whole over 200-page graphic novels.
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, it was simply you get an email, and that email says Tegan and Sara want to do 2 graphic novels with you. You say yes. You don't question anything, you just say yes. And then, I mean, with junior high, I'm sure you agree, I feel like we were figuring out our process more, because we'd never worked together, and I just got this massive script from you guys, and I just sort of waded through it, and as I was going through the script, I feel like I got to know you both, because we didn't really know each other
Not at all.
at the time. And then it was a matter of reading this script, I turned that into a rough graphic novel, you read that, gave feedback, and then it became the final graphic novel.
And so, did you notice a huge difference with Crush? Partly because you knew us
Completely.
What was one of the that was a question we got a lot. How was the process different between us for Crush?
Oh, it was night and day. Your script for Crush was so referential and grown out of what junior high was. Junior high was a shot in the dark. It was for all of us, we were I was trying to figure out how to draw you. You guys were trying to figure out how to write little tweens, and we were all just sort of wait, what's this kid's name? And with Crush, it was there was just a confidence in your writing, and I felt a confidence in my own craft, where I was I know the colors, I know the feel, I know the layouts, so I felt we could all, it is honestly junior high is junior high, and Crush is us growing up together.
Sara, I'm curious if you felt different writing the script. It's interesting that Tilly used the word confidence, there was more confidence.
Yeah.
You were the one that, you started the process with junior high. As soon as I heard it had to be a script, I was uh-oh, I don't know how to write a script, so you do it. So you wrote the first few chapters of junior high.
Is this really emblematic of your dynamic?
It is. Tegan, I like to think, no, this isn't a bad thing. I actually think it's an interesting part of our relationship. Tegan has always had the idea of the thing. Even in music, when we were trying to figure out what our next steps were after high school, Tegan was the one who came into our basement suite. We both
probably were wearing our respective, minimum wage job uniforms still, and Tegan said, we can't live in mom's basement and like play gigs on, every other Thursday. We have to make an album and we have to send it out and we have to get an agent and a label and we have to, she had the plan and she had the idea. But then somebody has to always do the idea, like actually do the labor part of the idea. It's not always just me, like there has to sort of be like the action of it. And I think I'm like a good procedural person. I really like to get into the details of those kinds of things. And Tegan, participates, but I think her strength is actually in dreaming up the thing that we're gonna do. And so when she found out that we had to write a script, she got very quiet over email, and I thought to myself, I was like, who emailed? Or new email, who did this? Yeah, I was just like, okay, she's been really excited about these graphic novels, but now she seems quite quiet about what happens next. So I read all of the sample scripts that our editor had sent us, and I did some research online, and then I just wrote a script, and I just sent it to Tegan, and she just, followed along with what I was doing, but it really was, like, exactly as you said. I wouldn't describe me writing half the book as following along, like what you were doing. I certainly you laid out an incredible first few chapters, and I was really excited. But jumping back to my question about Crush.
Yeah, with Crush, I just felt like, okay, we sort of roughly knew where we wanted the story to go. We knew that there was gonna be some very specific parts of our own journey of both junior high and our music career that we wanted to touch on. But, once we had sort of like loosely mapped that out, we jumped back in, and I do think that we found a good flow with each other. We don't collaborate well when we, period. Well, we don't collaborate well when we don't have space.
Roles.
Yeah, roles, and also space from each other. Like, we've actually...
Like this kind of space?
Come over to my side anytime.
I'm sure we made this joke on the last book, but like this would have been like what it was like if we were triplets. And I love it, and also I wish that we were triplets so that there was one person who could always mediate us in our relationship. I think Tegan and I collaborate well, meaning I think we've been successful in creating things together, but our very unique way of collaborating often involves not really being in the room with each other. And I think one of the things that's been very challenging about writing books is that it's something that I think often requires a more intimate approach than music does. And there's so many more rules to writing than I think there are with music. There is with music. So, but I do think we found our flow with Crush, and so we just I think we nailed that one really quickly. It didn't take as long. I think it's really interesting that junior high takes place largely at school, and Crush actually doesn't. It takes place in like a lot of other settings, as well as at school, but like young Tegan and young Sara are really like entering the world, and I feel like by writing that, I was able to access like emotion in your dynamic, and I was able to draw your dynamic in a way that felt more vivid to me, because junior high is just like, I mean, we all remember junior high, it's just like you're a husk of yourself because you're so like inundated with how wild school is, and how much is new. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think that, two things pop into mind. First of all, we have, an amazing team of editors who worked with us, and I think I can't take full credit for how much of the story takes place out of the school. I think that was them that sort of encouraged that the Tegan and Sara world could be bigger, and not to get trapped in school so much.
Which is pretty consistent, I think, with early adolescence, like at least in the 1990s. Like we got bus passes or transit passes when we were in junior high. We were allowed to go anywhere on transit. We were allowed to travel around the city. We were allowed to start.
Well, that's what one of the challenges of fictionalizing our story, but also modernizing it, is that like when we were the age of these kids, we did things that would, shock parents. Now it would never be
not in the book.
No,
very, very nice books.
Yeah, and like I feel like when we did the junior high tour, we talked about this, but that when we did the deal for this set of graphic novels, it was when we were writing our memoir, and so it was 2 years later that we sat down to write the script. And we had a call with our editors, and I created a PowerPoint presentation, sort of with like an outline, loose outline of what we were gonna do, and it was like real life. I think, like I thought when they said, can we tell your story of junior high, like the way you've done with high school, I didn't understand that it was gonna be for children. And, you know, I had stuff in about drugs and gangs and like all this stuff, and they were just like, oh my God, this is so scary, no. And I was like, oh, you don't want our story? And they were like, no. But it was super important to us that neither book felt like we were wiping away our real experience, though, either.
Right.
So it was like this funny dance where it was like, you know, for Crush, for example, one of the big changes is, of course, that both Tegan and Sara get crushes on girls, and it's like, okay, when we were in junior high, people didn't get crushes on each other, they dated each other, and then lots of other super scary stuff we won't talk about because there's kids. And, you know, so we were like, how far can we take it? But also, like, let's not patronize young people, because there's a lot of things that 12 and 13-year-olds that are doing, thinking, and feeling that their parents don't know. So we also wanted to make sure we peppered the book with enough adult and older themes so that those kids would be like they'd get it.
I think it's actually an interesting part of our collaboration because you had to include the internet and screens because these young Tegan and young Sara are here in our modern world. And it's actually something that I felt like worked because I grew up with screens. I got a smartphone in middle school. I had a YouTube channel. You can't find it, don't try.
How I emailed you, Tilly, and I asked
what?
for content for this
It's gone.
presentation.
I deleted it.
Why wouldn't
You
you?
don't get that content. No one gets it. But I felt like I could really relate when I was drawing these kids, like interacting with text messages, interacting with screens. I felt like that's where I got to put some of my experience in there, which was fun.
Also too, it wasn't so, like, one of the things I was really nervous about, and I reached out to a lot of my friends with older kids who were either on the precipice of like giving their kids phones and social media, or, you know, had already done it. And what came from those conversations is that Tegan and I are very immature because of our jobs. Like meaning, hold on, it's not a put down, but like I think in the music industry, specifically in the lane that we're in, we are required to sort of interact with and negotiate social media and the internet in a very we have to keep pace with young people.
You guys are better at Instagram than me. You're really good at it.
That
Yeah, you're not very good at it. You never accept our requests.
I don't.
It disappears, I can't find it. I don't know where the messages are.
But like I immediately thought like, oh gosh, that's totally true. Like we are always having to learn whatever the new, you know, I don't know, it's like just the tyranny of social media and like proof of life in the entertainment business is so overwhelming and exhausting. And that's exactly how it feels for young people when they get onto their cell phone for the first time, or their social media persona is being developed, or, you know, that navigation between, like in the book we talk a lot about behind the scenes content, like which is like something that, you know, young Tegan and Sara are trying to navigate, because it's like, how much do we put on the internet? How much do we reveal about ourselves? I mean, that's just taken from like our management meeting with our creative team last week. I mean, like that's something that we talk about still to this day. Like, how much of ourselves are we expected to, you know, deliver to people if we want to seem relevant? And so it feels like those themes that we were modernizing, it's like, well, actually I know more about this version of modernity than I do about what it was like actually in the 90s, because that was just such a brief blink of time. Like I'm nostalgic for it, I love it, I can sort of, you know, talk about how amazing it was, but that really was only 3 years of my life where I was an adolescent without the internet. I've basically spent 25 years being on the internet, you know.
What were you doing on your YouTube page? What was
Was it like a direct to camera type situation? Like you talked to the camera?
Was it your skating?
God, no. It was surreal when I think back to like the kinds of things we posted. It was like we'd take like the free music that was in iMovie, and we just have like videos of us doing things. I remember once I was like sitting in the grass in a new outfit I got from Vans. I looked cute. No, it wasn't cute. At one point we just titled a video Sushi, and we just talked about sushi. Like it was so
I'll do anything to see the video.
No, I'm sorry.
Do you, like, it's interesting, well, I'm gonna flip ahead a little bit, like, and show some photos of us in 8th grade, do you think, I think we talked about this before, but I don't want to ask again, but like, do you think that we would have been friends?
I do. I think I would have fallen in love with one or both of you.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually, that's
Like you wouldn't have been repelled by our twinness as a twin?
No, I think I would have seeked you out because I would have like I was so sick by middle school of people being like, "You're twins," or just like all the silly questions like, "Can you read each other's minds?" and stuff that we put in the book.
Tilly, this is, I'm so glad you set this up,
What?
unknowingly so well. Up in the left corner, there's a photograph, probably seems familiar. Most of you have seen a yearbook photo. You know, you're part of a club and then they make you pose with that club for the yearbook. That club is the twins. Those are two sets of,
Look how happy you all are.
that's one set of identical twins, Jeff and Brad, and lovely boys, came from a large Mormon family, lived a couple doors down from us, 13 kids. There was one younger brother, Mikey, he was in our grade, and then a set of fraternal twins. And Tegan dated one boy from each set of twins. When she was still straight. No, I wasn't ever straight. Well, I just meant more like straight.
You didn't know you were gay.
You didn't know? Well, she knew she was gay.
Oh, I knew.
But you were, yeah. But I also was like, well, if I'm gonna have to be a gay, but also live in a straight world, then I'm gonna date absolutely every boy. All of them. I pretty much dated every guy in my grade.
What did you learn?
Well, number one was I really didn't like boys.
There you go.
It didn't matter. I tried them all out, and it never felt good to hold hands. It didn't. As soon as I kissed a girl, I was literally like, "Wow, boys are not good at this," you know. And then I figured out, oh, like no, you're just not into it. But these guys were fine. The other thing that's kind of funny is I'm like, well, what was I actually I'm not gonna say it. What else can I tell you about these photos? Whatever. What nerds? Do you think we would have been friends?
I do. I do. I think I would have been like, they dress so cool.
Which do you think is the coolest slogan shirt that we're wearing? I'll point out a few for you. On Santa, I chose to wear a Take Back the Night shirt.
I'm living for Elmo up there.
Now, Sarah wears a lot of Disney. Because Disney was cool. It was like kind of, this is actually in grade 8. And I was sort of trying out a few different identities. So grade 8, I was trying out prep.
Oh, nice.
So all the prep boys and some of the girls, is Elmo prep? Well, Sesame Street on like, I don't remember what brand this is, like maybe it's a Club Monaco or something. It was like a co-branded.
Oh, it was a collab
thing. It was a collab.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was trying that out. And I'm dressing exclusively in my parents' clothes. So I Have an Attitude is my stepdad's shirt. There's no difference is a no means no Calgary sexual assault shirt, which is where my mom worked. And then this one, a friend of mine, Carrie, you're here today. I'm wearing a Roots t-shirt, so it's just like an OG Roots shirt.
I'm also dressed as
I would have been mesmerized.
You were like
this.
Yeah.
We were basically like, we were searching for identities, and especially in grade 7 and grade 8, it did involve a lot of our parents' clothing. Here's my fear, Tilly.
What?
I do think like we would have, now we want to be friends, but you were so sweet. I think you would have
It was
been
a sweet little
I
fact.
think you would have been
I tried.
fucking terrified by us.
I mean, yeah, but I would have loved that.
Right. Like I think that your family would be like, you're not hanging out with those dirtbags. Absolutely not. We were like drinking ginseng and like taking gravel like to get dizzy. Like we were not good, you know, and you just looked like
I needed that.
Can you talk a little bit about your figure skating?
Oh God.
Just briefly, please.
I was a figure skater for 12 years, and it's really.
Like, you were really good.
I was pretty good. And my coach, when I was 7, one of my proudest moments was when she said I had the flattest stomach of all the girls.
Oh, wow.
It's a little dark. She doesn't coach anymore. But yeah, I have like. To get these photos, I went back and found like my iPhone photos from this age. Like that's a selfie I took of myself. And I have like so many moody photos of like my bedroom, and some of the selfies are just so embarrassing I couldn't put it up here. But I feel like this photo, I was a figure skater for a long time. I was a synchronized skater, and I was always trying to do like one little thing to make me feel a little bit more like myself, because I never felt like myself in sequins and a small dress. But I'm wearing my Vans, which I was like extremely dedicated to, my black Vans, and none of the other girls wore black Vans, and it was like my one little way to be like, I'm secretly gay! I'm wearing my shoes that I want to wear. And you can't see, but I have fake hair around my bun, because in Texas, all the figure skaters do buns, and then you put fake hair around that bun. Why? I don't know. Does it help you skate? Absolutely not. But there's fake hair there, you just can't see it. I'm never going back.
Yeah, no, absolutely don't. This next section that we're gonna get into is a reading section, and we're gonna have a couple audience members come up, but I do wanna like set the story up first. But before I do, when I put this up on the screen during our production check, you hate.
I don't like this page.
Will you tell us why?
I don't think I did a very
I
good
chose
job.
this because it's one of my favorites.
No.
What don't
No,
you like about it?
compositionally, I think that I could have done a lot more to make it, this is me getting into the nuance of comics here. I think the perspective is a little bit forced. I think the signage at the top, not as good as it could be. Why are these signs just floating up above? That doesn't make any sense. I think I wish I'd done a more dramatic perspective and actually filled the background with pencil so it was dark and there was like light on the stage. But I remember this moment where I was like, I don't want to fill this in with pencil. We're moving along. We're gonna let this spread be what it is, and we'll do better later on.
You were drawing this right before before Walter was born.
Yeah, I like couldn't reach my desk because my pregnant belly was like jutting up against it. So I was like, doo.
Priorities.
Well, I think it's one of my favorites because, I mean, first of all, I just thought it summed up the sort of themes of Crush really well. Like there's a lot of conflict, and which is obviously pulled from our real life experience, which is there's an enormous amount of conflict that comes from being not just an identical twin, but being in a band and running a business together. And you know, in book one and now in book two, you just built these really beautiful interstitials. These are all from your imagination, how you sum up our thoughts and feelings. And I use boxing as a reference and a way to describe how I feel often people in our world treat us. Like there'll be a decision we're trying to make, and all of a sudden, even though all of us get a vote, no one else will say anything, and then it's just Sarah and I pitted against each other. And so I often talk about like, I just want a referee, I just want someone to jump in. And anyways, this page really resonated, but now that I know you hate it, it doesn't feel the same. Sorry. So, okay, we're gonna do a reading right now, and it's from chapter 8, No More Drama, and just to remind everyone, including Tilly, who admitted she can't even remember what this book is about.
You reminded me.
Yes. The book one ends with Tegan and Noah having a falling out because Noah chooses the mean girls over Tegan, and Roshini goes away to camp. And so book two, Crush, opens with Tegan really missing Noah, Sara really missing Roshini. Both of them are anxious about starting the school year, but they have not seen their best friends yet. So this scene is the first time both of them see their best friends. So Sarah's gonna choose two audience members to come up and read, and we're gonna try to just project off the microphone and see if that works. So everyone has to listen with a lot of their listening powers.
I'm probably just gonna keep
You
talking.
can kind of keep doing your thing.
I got the lapel thing, so I can always help.
Great, choose two people.
Okay, I need two people. All right, you here, and I'm gonna pick from the back because I'm like always choosing from the front. I'm so sorry.
This is why I make Sarah choose.
Hand up in the back with the black shirt. Yep, you come on up. I always pick from the front, and then I'm like, I'm completely neglecting the back. That's fair. Okay. Oh shoot, sorry. So sorry.
The play's over. The play's canceled.
How's it going? So you're gonna be, okay, maybe Tegan doesn't want you to use the microphone.
Are you guys standing up for this?
No, you can say seated.
I can say you use the microphone.
Oh, was I supposed to say? Oh no.
You can just sort of like, you're gonna be fine. You just sort of project out.
For sure.
I feel like if
Come
you
on up
volunteer,
here.
you feel like you're confident.
I'll
For
give
sure.
that. This one.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I'll do teacher voice.
you'll do teacher voice?
Hi.
Okay. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
I'm Tegan.
Okay, don't be
What is
alarmed.
your name? Fatima, it's nice to meet you. You will be reading the role of Noah this evening.
Here, you know what, let's put really come on, ready?
Alright, come over here.
Okay.
And then, what is your name?
Eileen.
Eileen,
Yes.
you are reading the role of Roshini.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
a reminder, you're gonna be reading the role of narrator and drama teacher.
I can handle that.
Okay, and I'm gonna project as well.
Just to prove it can be done. Also, apparently I'm.
Who's gonna do the little click?
I'll click it. Yeah, okay. Team effort.
School auditorium day. I'm describing the panels. A teacher stands on stage in front of a group of students. The atmosphere is relaxed, with bright stage lights and the soft murmur of excited students. All right, welcome to drama. Let's do a little warm up. I want you all to howl at the moon like wolves.
Ow!
Excellent. Now we're going to get into pairs. We're going to do trust falls. Let's see. Evan, you with Samira, Talia, Clover, Tegan, Noah, pair up. Tegan and Noah, as they exchange nervous but determined looks, ready to trust each other in this exercise. The scene transitions to the trust falls. Tegan and Noah facing each other a bit awkwardly. Let's get cracking.
Please don't drop me.
Why would I do that? You want to go first?
You trust me?
I know you would never drop me.
Or ditch you?
I didn't ditch you.
You kinda did.
You're right. I'm sorry, Tiki. I really am. It was also complicated.
And now it's not?
No, I miss you.
You're just lonely without Avery.
Tegan gets into position to fall into Noah's arms. She starts to fall back, and Noah catches her easily. There's a moment of relief and reconnection. Perfect, switch.
Give me another chance, Tiki. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you at the dance.
I don't know, Noah.
Fall.
You can trust me, Tegan.
Tegan falls into Noah's arms. Cut to Sara sitting with Roshini in a hallway, leaning against lockers. They're talking. The atmosphere relaxed.
When's your first soccer practice?
Today, I'm freaked out, honestly.
You, soccer star? You'll do great, I know it.
Aw, you're sweet, Sarah. My legs feel out of practice.
Your legs are perfect.
No way, but I did play a lot of kickball at camp.
Sounds fun.
Have you ever been to camp?
No, Tegan was always too nervous to be away from my mom.
That's so cute.
Was camp lonely, ever?
Not really, because I had Lola.
Lola? Is she your best friend?
She's my camp best friend.
Oh, okay, cool.
She's so funny.
Enough about Lola, really.
Sarah's cell phone buzzes.
What's up?
It's nothing.
Tegan and Noah are sitting together. Tegan's cell phone buzzes. Tegan pulls out her cell phone and looks at it.
Who keeps texting, Tiki?
It's just our manager reminding us to practice.
I love your new songs.
How did you hear them?
The tryouts online. Is ex-friend about me?
Would you be mad if it was?
No way. I'm your #1 fan, remember?
Back to Sara and Roshini.
I saw your tryout online. Everyone was sharing it.
Do you like the new songs?
I liked Killer Bee the best. The line, "This long distance, it's so vicious."
Roshini pulls out a friendship bracelet. She hands it to Sara.
I made this bracelet for you at camp. I thought about you all summer.
I thought about you too.
They look at each other, googly-eyed, smitten, and seen.
Thank you so much, you guys. That was wonderful.
Should we pivot to theater?
I think we should. I think we should.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was really good. Were you a drama kid?
No,
Did you go to camp?
I did.
You go with your brother?
I did, but I didn't miss my mom. So different.
Yeah. I never got to try out camp because Tegan went, in real life, Tegan went to patroller camp, which I don't know if they call it
What?
patrollers anymore. Back in the 1980s, when you were in elementary school, you were given a stop sign and a little glow-in-the-dark vest, and you, the children, chauffeured other children across the street. This is a job now that adults do. I'm not sure why children were not allowed to do it. We did it just fine. In fact, there was a whole camp dedicated to the best of the best.
And I was
Tegan went.
I was chosen from our school to
And
go.
Tegan went, and she got to go for
I love that.
3 days to patroller camp. I was devastated. Because actually, I'm just gonna say it, and I think Tegan would agree. I heard her describe us this way with regards to our skills in karate. I think I actually probably was a more like disciplined patroller, but at the time, my mom and I think our teachers were trying to help Tegan build more self-confidence without me.
This is news to me. That's not. I don't think so. I think I just took it more seriously than you did. You might have been better at it than I was, but I was chosen and selected. Part of what I remember is that it was, you volunteered to do it, and I took it really seriously. And the reason why you go to the camp is because they brought you there, and then you would become the leader.
The people who train the new people.
Yeah, and that's very
Building
neat. That's not
confidence.
You. Yeah,
building confidence pretty much sounds like exactly what I was just telling you. But anyways, Tegan went, and she had a bad time. I mean, a miserable time. And I was staying with my grandparents during the few days that she was away, and she called my grandparents' house to talk to me like every hour. She basically just was the kid who hung out wherever the phone was located at a camp. I don't know, I never went. And
It's in the person who runs the camp, their office.
Tegan basically was
God,
called
yeah.
crying, trying to get me to convince my mom to come get her, and my mom wouldn't let her come home. And eventually told her if she stayed, she'd get a treat at the end, like some kind of special treat, special prize.
She did not use the word treat. She said, "I will give you a present."
Fine, she said she'd give her a present, and so it was horrible. We felt really bad. And then for
45 minutes away. Why couldn't they come get me?
we were building character and resilience for you. But when Tegan came home, she tells the story that my mom, we picked her up and she said, "Where's my present?" And my mom had got her a pencil and a bag of chips. And it was devastating. And then
Like I was expecting a new bike.
yeah,
That's how different the impression my mom got from what I had been through and what I lived through. That's how different it
but
was.
the experience itself, like one of the things that's really stuck with me, as siblings who did everything together, it was truly the first time that Tegan went out into the world and had an experience completely separate from anything that I had ever experienced. And so one of my memories in the months following that was asking Tegan, like drilling down on these details, like tell me again. So you got on the bus and you sat where and who sat next to you and what did they say and how did it feel? And we would go through every trauma that Tegan had. It was like the first time that she was misgendered in the girls' bunk, then when the girls decided it was actually an asset that she looked like a boy and they wanted her to go to the boys' cabin and pretend to be a boy and find out what the boys thought of the girls, and like we would just talk about it over and over and over again.
Actually, a lot of those bunk bed scenes
Yes.
from the book, that's
Yeah.
like very much like, that's what we did when I got home from camp. We went to my dad's actually, and we were on these bunk beds, and Sarah just all night just asked me questions, and I could just feel that she was absolutely traumatized by my trauma of this stupid camp, but she wouldn't stop asking me about it, and I was like, she's really upset about what happened to me.
Well, obviously I felt upset, but I think there was something in there about like, maybe if I can understand it, if I ever get to go to camp, I'll be able to like do it differently. And that was elementary school, but in some ways junior high was similar too, because Tegan and I, it was the first time we weren't just in separate classes, we sort of ended up in different sort of like social ecosystems because of those classrooms. Like Tegan was showing up, when we would walk home from school in junior high, she would be telling me these stories because she just happened to be in classes, her homeroom, with girls who were a little more mature and were having some more mature things happen in their world, and she would be telling me these horror stories on the way home, and I would be like, my God, whereas like I was in a homeroom classroom with kids where it was like a whole other set of social dynamics that, and Tegan and I we would just sort of like download with each other in this way that went beyond just like what probably like a best friendship would have felt like. We were sort of like psychoanalyzing these things to sort of, I think, try to figure out how to survive them.
I think that really shows up in the book, because in both books, because when you write about a twin relationship, and I know because I am a twin, it's sort of the foundational relationship for everything, and it's such an intimate relationship that it's like on par with writing romance or writing like any kind of intimate family connection, where it's just like, it's so intense, the feelings between you two. And I feel like that's kind of the heart of the book, even though it is a book about friendship these are books about growing up, but it really is just a book about how two sisters find peace with each other.
Well, in Crush, this leads to sort of this next little section, which, you know, three of the main storylines of Crush, you know, these three big pivotal events that happened to young Tegan and Sara are pulled from our actual real life. And that was something we were really excited to do, even though this book ended up being almost purely fiction. We did want to pepper it with some of our own experiences. And people ask us all the time to write about our music career, and we're just like, oh, who cares?
Yeah.
But there have been some interesting and pivotal things that have happened in music, so we tried to figure out how to adopt them for young Tegan and Sara. The first, of course, is how Crush opens, which is that Tegan and Sara's band, Gunk, enters this battle of the bands, and they lose, which is not what really happened to us. In reality, we entered this battle of the bands and we won, and that's how we became a band. But we made them lose, and actually one of my partner Sophia, I texted you this, she read the book last week, she hadn't read it yet, and her favorite panel from the entire book is the one, I don't have it on the screen, but it's when they arrive at the Battle of the Bands, and because Tegan and Sara are minors, they make them stand behind the stanchion. It's
I love it.
and the way you drew them just like standing there so defeated, and I think one of them says like, "Do we just stand here all night?" Is that what it is?
Cordoned off the
Yeah.
little non-alcohol zone.
And she just cried.
That was a
laughter.
delight to draw.
Yeah, she just loved. She was like, "Please tell Tilly that was my favorite panel of the whole." Like, that was just, she just loved that moment.
It was a good panel.
But how did you? Were you surprised? I mean, you probably didn't know this part of our story, I'm assuming, but like.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I knew bits and pieces because I've been following your music, and like I sort of knew. But yeah, when I remember when I was reading the script, I was like, they lose. Where's the narrative? Isn't this supposed to be like middle grade? I mean, the kids get what they want. But as I read on, I realized what you were doing narratively, and it was so much fun to draw. These are good pages, by the way. Unlike that boxing page, I approve of these. Good compositions, tight, very tight. Yeah, I don't know. It was fun to draw them trying so hard and getting like so in the moment, and then I still remember drawing your faces when I had to draw the expression when you found out it wasn't you that won.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those moments when I was working on the book where I felt very much in the moment with you guys. I felt like I was there.
Yeah.
Even in this fictional version, which is strange to say.
Well, it's funny because I revisited it because of her joy. Like, it's funny watching someone else read a book. It's like made me want to read it again. But this section in particular really moved me. Like, I, spent a lot of time with these particular pages, and yeah, you really can't. Even though we won in real life, we were so scared and anxious and excited. Like, all of our friends had come to witness it, and our parents, and I think everyone was quite bewildered that this had happened to us. But that's the feeling inside. But then I found this clip of us like a couple weeks after we won, and I was like, I don't seem anxious or nervous at all.
It's springtime in high schools in Calgary, and thoughts are starting to turn toward final exams, graduation, and
This
summer
guy.
jobs. But for 17-year-old twins, Sara and Tegan Quinn, their thoughts are starting to turn toward a career in music.
Let's tell them all I have to face this world as me.
This is where it all began 2.5 years ago, writing songs and learning how to play guitar. And it might have stayed here if the twins hadn't entered Garage Wars, an annual fight to the finish between rockers and punk bands.
We're like two little 17-year-old kids sitting up there and saying what we want to say, and we don't have nothing to hide behind. And maybe that's what the difference is that, I mean, the music industry, getting up on stage, going in front of people you don't know, saying things that you wrote down to yourself, that's very, very, very intimidating.
They earned higher marks than any band in the 7 years of Garage Wars. It's something they find a little overwhelming, but very exciting.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So our mom moderated an event for us, so we got an opportunity to talk through this section, and we asked her, that's her picking us up in that clip at the end, which is just both horrifyingly sad. I don't know why. It's like my own thing, but I'm like, oh, like just thinking like my mom, 2 weeks before that, we were just little shitheads barely graduating high school, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden this crazy profound thing happens, and then my mom's like parked in her Jeep, being like, the CBC's following my kids around at their high school. Like, it pulverizes my insides. But the next big thing that happened and I asked my mom about this, was that almost immediately, like, the media in Calgary
Yeah.
covered us, and we probably did like half a dozen interviews, and our first photo shoots, and so we asked her, like, what did she feel about it?
Oh, what did she say?
She said that, I mean, sometimes I don't trust my mom's just like memory, if I'm being honest. Well, just because like what impacted us didn't necessarily
Right.
impact her, so putting her on the spot in front of like hundreds of people and being like, what did you feel about our first photo shoot? The initial look in her face was like, what photo shoot?
Yeah.
So, but you remembered that we dressed ourselves out of our mom's closet. Like we went and got her clothes. And in a lot of these photos, like we're wearing like her, I mean, I would hope so. Like clearly at 17, I didn't go out and buy Tevas. You know what I mean? Like, but you know, she said she just remembers feeling really nervous for us and really excited, and then she just, every adult she interacted with, every writer, every whatever, she just kept asking them like, are they good? Is that why this is happening? Like, what's like, what is happening here?
I feel like we captured that in the book a little bit, your
Yeah.
mom's reaction.
Yeah. Well, in the book, I feel like she's the first time she's dealing with the fame part of it, like Sonia, the mom, is at this photo shoot, and we wrote her in, like, really reassuring us.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have that. In reality,
Yeah.
we went out and started our career, and we were, like, all of a sudden in Europe at photo shoots, and, like, slimy photographers are like, okay, lay together in the bed and touch each other, and we were, like, 18, you know? So in the book, it was super important to us to have that, like, really calming, really supportive parent figure.
It's also too, like, I do think our mom was a force when we first started meeting with record labels,
Yeah.
managers. We were underage, and my mom wouldn't let us sign anything. She wouldn't let us do anything because she was like, I will not let you make choices that may permanently impact the rest of your life until you're ready, to, like, until you can legally sign this stuff yourself. And she was very protective of us, but there is something so, at least during the process when I was writing all of this, maybe too the part of being a new parent and thinking about how I might handle something like this for this child that I'm imagining will grow up and I'll want to see, you know, follow his dreams, whatever those might be. But I think just given the kind of like the age and the time that we're living through, I'm gonna be more protective of him than my parents were. Like our parents were protective of us, but they were also, you know, we had house keys in grade 6, and you know, we're trolling around the city on our own by the time we were 14 or 15 years old. Like we did not have a lot of supervision. There wasn't, my mom, when she was trying to protect us from signing contracts, I think it was literally because she didn't want to be responsible for us anymore. She was like, you're going to be 18 soon, and then you're going to have to pay rent and move out and sign your own contracts and figure out your own life. Like she was really driven to make sure that we were going to be independent.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways, it's been a fantasy and a sort of fun, healing thing to imagine, like, well, what if our parents had been overprotective? Like, what would our lives have looked like?
Yeah.
Were your parents overprotective?
No.
You were just free to do whatever.
Yeah, I was just like, I sort of appeared one day and was like, I'm gonna be a cartoonist, and they were like, what? Like, excuse me, are you a figure skater? And I was like, I stopped that a year ago. And then like when my career started, also when I was 18, very young, they were just sort of baffled by every step that I took.
And there's some, okay, there
you
is
processed
something really beautiful about having your parents believe in you or
Yeah.
or like not get involved or whatever.
It was kind of nice. I was free to like make my choices, because if I had asked them, hey, should I publish a small book with 2 random men in England who can give me no money, they would have been like, no. But I said yes, and guess what? I still make money from those books.
Wow.
10 years later.
That's cool.
Have you gone back and forth? Like, you know, it was interesting having my mom come and moderate, because it's
Yeah.
like we are processing publicly
Yeah.
our childhood. First with high school, now with junior high and Crush. You know, most recently with this movie Fanatical that's coming out tomorrow, this documentary about this terrible thing. Like, we're processing good things and bad things that have happened to us that touch a lot of our family and friends publicly.
I know.
And I'm curious, like, have you had conversations about the early part of your career or life, or even just something as simple as you just said, how encouraging, and just your parents just being like, sure, go do, like, do you talk with your parents about that stuff?
We've talked about it, and you know, I wrote a memoir. I made a graphic novel that was a memoir, and that was kind of the like straw that broke the camel's back.
This is Spinning.
Yeah, Spinning, where my parents were like,
Which is amazing. If you haven't read it, you should.
Thank you. I agree. It's a pretty good book. Worked really hard on it.
Just an award-winning graphic novel. It's not a big deal.
Aw, thank you. But yeah, it was a lot for them, for me to write a memoir, and I knew it would be a lot for them, and it forced us to talk about things. And after we did, it got a lot better because I realized I could say to them, like, oh, by the way, I was, miserable for every single year of my childhood, and they were like, what?
Like, Armin was super upset by the way that she was depicted in high school. Were your parents upset by?
Yeah, they were. But it's hard because, and I think about this now as a parent, I want to believe that I can have the confidence in myself to allow my son to express my failings someday. I just wish they could do it sooner than we did it.
I know.
Maybe we can correct
Did
course.
we wait too long?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm like, because I feel like, well, first of all, my son is only 2 years old, but like, he should not have any issues at this point.
It should be a 5-star rating
As far as
for
I'm
this
concerned,
one.
like what you just said about like every year of your life. Well, the first 2 goddamn haven't been bad because we worship this guy. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's living a great life. He gets ice cream whenever he wants. I mean,
But he could resent you for that later if he
I don't
becomes
care.
addicted to sugar.
Objectively, his life is like supreme. Like, it's great. So like, I'm also like, oh, what would it have been like? And again, I think this ties into the way that we've rendered this story in a fictional world, and why my mom really likes these books, is because it is a less critical look at our childhood, and it's also, I think, taking the best parts of what our parents gave us and how they supported us, and it's also aspirational, and it's sort of, I hope, is something that, like, I love the parents in this book. I love my
They're
real
so
parents. I love my real parents, and then I love the fictional version of our parents, and I hope that some version of these parents is the way that Sid will see, me, when like that he will see firm and supportive and loving, but also, not pushovers, but also not totally absent either,
I think it's hard, and it's something I think about a lot because I predominantly write for teenagers, and I think a lot about myself as a teenager, and I think back to so many moments and I'm like, why didn't I just say something? But that's being young. Like, it doesn't even matter if you can identify what's going on inside of you. There is this humongous bridge you have to cross to opening up about something. And I think that dealing with your experiences as a kid and as a teenager, it's so natural when you live a creative life as an adult to be constantly going back and looking at what was hard and looking at what was wonderful and putting it in our stories. Because I think everyone does that, whether they write books or write songs.
Yeah. One of the things that we inserted into Crush was a mentor for Tegan and Sara. We created the character Night Fever, who's supposed to be like, I guess, like a local Billie Eilish, basically, for them to look up to. Because that was missing for us, right? Pre-social media, early days of our career, there was no mentorship. Like, and I think we could have used that. And it's something we put into our day-to-day life now. We've mentored so many artists over the years because community is just so key to surviving in this business. So Night Fever was that character, and obviously the girls, this is a spoiler alert for all of you who are gonna go to the back and buy the book at the end of tonight, but they lose the contest, but they do get a manager, and that manager manages Night Fever, the superstar that they look up to, and they end up getting Night Fever to do a cameo in their music video, and all the teenagers can't believe it. It's very exciting. So I just, for fun, because we're just facing our fears, I have 30 seconds of our first music video. Yes.
Stand up, sit down, baby. Gonna be a formal dress down heyday. We decide wanna go downtown. How about you and me, we go get wasted. Why don't we get wasted? Hey, let's get wasted. By definition from grade school to go study, we quietly become strong so early. Take it or leave it. They can't believe it. They go from kindergarten to killing sprees. They go from heartache to inner peace. 100-foot seal is 100% distinct. He said, let's leave this between you and me. My cat's going to my stuff. Leave my house between you and me. The cat going to what did you say? Tell me, baby, how's it feel?
Sarah, you didn't look at it once.
I actually think that's song's a banger. I think every time I listen to it, like
It's so 90s.
it's well, I don't know what it is. It's just what I think what is interesting, and it's come up a lot for me because we've been playing this at these book events. Is I've been thinking so much about people like Chappell Roan and these younger artists that are coming out, and they're so honest. Like they're so uncensored, and they just say whatever they want, and it makes me relieved that we did not have social media.
Oh my God, thank God.
Because this is
We might have had a YouTube video talking about sushi.
I mean, what we would have had is a YouTube or TikTok video about the state of the world, which is what that song is. That was we had just gotten out of high school, and Tegan wrote this song called The First, and it was her sort of like off the cuff observations of like life where you're in that purgatory between adolescence and adulthood, and you're pissed at the adults, and you're super glad you're not a kid anymore. But the reference to kindergarten to killing sprees, that was in the wake of Columbine. We had just watched Columbine happen on CNN months earlier, and I listened to this. I can't look at it really, but like I was hurt my
That
neck.
turtleneck.
Remember till I hurt my neck? I'm having trouble turning to the left.
Yeah.
But it's not just because of the haircut and the turtleneck. But the thing that I'm really struck by is Tegan didn't totally agree with this comment the other night, but like the music is angry. Yeah. We are angry.
It's raw.
And that was so provocative at that time. And when I think now about the response from the first round of sort of like press and media that we got, some people were so put off by our anger. There was like, I remember a very common thing that would happen when we would get off stage or we would do interviews, people would say like in a very demeaning sort of way. It was either like, did you write these songs about your boyfriends? And then it would always be like, what are you so angry about? Why are you so angry? And I think that I'm thinking about all of that again because I think we did learn how to temper ourselves, not because we were afraid of being called angry, but because I felt like somehow the message of what we were trying to say, was being lost on people. And I think that there's something that's coming up for me with young people who are able to like locate their anger, their feelings, and talk about it, even if it's in like a very, what to me doesn't always feel disciplined, because we grew up in an era where it was required of us that we were very disciplined, or else, we could lose a relationship to a label or a radio station or whatever. We had to learn how to be able to speak this way so we could get our message across. And when I watch that video, I think to myself, wow, we would have been so different. Our career would look so different if we had been growing up and putting out music now. Because
the expectation is totally
it would be so different, because I see that and I just think like, oh, our next album could have been like a thrash record or something. I mean, I just feel like Tegan and I we were angry. We were so angry, and we didn't know how to filter that except through music. The kids in this book are not angry.
No.
They are so sweet, and they are like.
There's one moment in the book where I think I won't say what it is, but towards the end, right? Do you think there's like real anger there? But yeah, that's not this story.
No, it's like reaching into that sort of like the one thing that was an anecdote to a lot of my anxiety anyways in junior high and high school. Like when I was starting to figure out the world, wearing my Take Back the Night shirt, thinking about feminism, thinking about like how unfair everything was, and then also really scared because I knew I was gay. And then all of a sudden everything clicked for me because I started to have crushes on girls. And it was it was terrifying, but it was like a salve for me to like sit in my math class and think about girls. I just thought about them, and then I would just feel this warm sensation through my whole body, and I would be like, I'll just think about that so I don't, and even though it was part of the thing that was terrifying me, that I was gay, it's like I could not resist the sort of like feeling that it would bring into my body or whatever, and I feel like we really leaned into that in this book a little bit. Not just crushes that you have on romantic people, but when you meet someone who's super cool, like Tegan in the book gets a crush on DJ Cucumber, a local musician who she ends up working with.
It's devastating. It's devastating to, like, do you remember your first crush?
I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
It's hard to, I mean, I have like certain crushes that really come to the forefront. And it's just like, now it's just like, they're just names. Like, I just remember Elizabeth and I remember Stephanie. But like you said, sitting in math class, like every night I fell asleep imagining me and Stephanie or me and Elizabeth just
Doing what?
that's too personal.
I want to ask this because it's interesting, like in the book, obviously the Tegan character gets a crush on DJ Cucumber, and it's not a sexual thing, right? It's like, you know, I think we played with the idea that like in the case of DJ Cucumber and Tegan, it's about mentorship. It's about like looking to someone who's just a little bit older than you, who can offer some guidance, but Tegan mistakes that for like a different kind of affection. I think like she's experimenting with that. Like she understands that she's gay, but doesn't quite yet have the language for it, but she kind of projects it onto DJ Cucumber. And it reminds me of my first crush, which was on this woman, Karen, I know, who worked with my mom. My mom ran this day camp in the summers, said Sarah and I had to go there. We started going when we were really young. I think we were 7 or 8. And we spent the summers there because my mom was running the program. But you know, my mom was like running the program, so she was in an office. But the sort of her right-hand man was this woman, Karen. And everybody was in love with Karen. She was a redhead, and she wore like Doc Martens, and she was just like up for anything. And I was obsessed with her. And it was my first proper, not like, I did not understand what it was that I was feeling for her. But at night, I had these wild fantasies, not unlike you and Sarah talking about, you would think about girls and get this warm feeling. For me, I would think about Karen, but specifically what I imagined was that she would kidnap me. And in my fantasy, she would put me there was a specific van, the whole thing, like I had every detail down. She would take me in this van, and she would It's just a restraint, not anything else. It's just a restraint. They give it like a seatbelt. And take me back to her house. And this is a book for children, and it is appropriate for children. This story is not. This story is fine. And then she would take me to her house and put me in the basement. And then she would go on. She would ask me questions. Forced therapy. She would ask me questions, and she would just listen to me. Oh my God! The ultimate fantasy! Someone interested in what we have to say! Which I also think is a criticism of our childhood and parents. And so, I don't think Mom likes that story either, so, for the record. Especially because our mom was a therapist, so I'm not gonna get Freudian right now, but just you do with that what you will.
No, it's so true though, because it's crushes in childhood run the gamut. Where like a lot of my crushes, my fantasies were about them like saving me from peril, and a lot of my crushes were like meeting older girls who I wanted to be my mom, and I wanted to take care of me. I remember this girl, Hayden. I was at her house.
What a name!
I know, Texas crush right there.
It's different there.
Instant crush. But I remember her parents weren't there, my parents weren't there. We were just at her house, and she made me rice and beans. Somehow, it's Texas. We know how to make rice and beans. We were like 12.
That's so advanced.
She made me dinner, and we sat down and ate it, and literally to this day, I have a 1-year-old who loves beans. Every time I make rice and beans, I think about her, and I feel like suddenly nurtured. Aww. It's amazing.
It's funny because Tegan switches this page throughout the book tour. I never know which crush is going to come up on this is a real life person that I had a relationship with, my first real relationship with this girl. She's still my best friend. She's still like one of the most significant people in my life. But not unlike Tegan's fantasy, I think the most important part of our connection, like our friendship really was founded on writing these long, we talked all the time, we were teenage girls, we talked on the phone endlessly, but we also wrote and kept these long journals for each other. And
oh my God.
We just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, and then we didn't go to the same high school, so we would see each other on the weekend, and we would deliver these like fat, like duotang like documents to each other, like here everything I didn't cover in the 68 hours we spoke this week. But one of the things that I was so grateful for, and I'm not saying that straight people don't have this at this age, but they don't, I don't think. But I, even if I had liked boys, like I'm having a very hard time imagining all the boyfriends that I did have enduring the kinds of conversation and connection that I required at that age. And I got that. I think it is just like one of the most, it's really hit me in this later adulthood as we've started to sort of like go back and look at these relationships. This is my first relationship, and I found someone who would reciprocate this need that I had. You know, she didn't have to kidnap me and handcuff me and put me in the basement and ask me questions.
Don't
She
knock
just-
it till you try it.
she just was like, she really, it was such a founding relationship, and it was so positive, and I feel like it's such a significant part of why I've always partnered with women who share this kind of, I don't know what it would be called, a stamina for me, like just to be able to put up with me and remain curious. I mean, my wife and I have been together now over 14 years, and like, you know, she does deep sigh when I call her like 16 times a day when she picks up the phone, but she still picks it up, and I really appreciate that. But I also just wanted to share that while not Karen from day camp, who I also had a crush on, my childhood crush, which Tilly, I want to know who your childhood crush is, was Susan Sarandon in The Client.
Oh.
And I desperately wanted to witness a murder, so a woman like that would show up and have to protect me. So again, I'm not sure where this all comes from, but I was like, I wanted
need more time for that.
I really, really wanted Susan Sarandon to come and save me and talk to me and ask me questions about the murder.
This is Elizabeth, and actually it's we had this experience that I've always wanted to put in a book, and I wanted to put it in spinning, but there wasn't room. There wasn't a room for a lot of stuff in spinning because it's already 400 pages, too long. But it's a very unique and like kind of terrifying experience that I think you can only have if you went to middle school or high school, like 2007 and beyond. But we would have active shooter drills, and all the time. And then every now and then there would be one that potentially wasn't a drill. And I was very used to in my childhood just being like shoved into a closet with a bunch of other kids. And I remember I was in orchestra, and there was a drill, and again, we didn't know, like, is it a real one or is it not? And they put us all back where they stored the instruments. And they turned out the lights, and we were all told to be quiet. And this is like a whole orchestra stuffed into a back room, our bodies pressed against each other. And I remember feeling so scared, and Elizabeth was right there next to me, and it was one of the most like profoundly intimate moments of my high school experience because we couldn't talk to each other. All I could do was just hear her breathing and hear my own breathing. And it was, in a very strange way, it was kind of amazing. I felt alive, and I felt like I cared about being alive, and I wanted to keep being alive. But it's also terrifying. You know, it's a really surreal, weird thing that you only know if you've been shoved in a closet with other kids. But that was one of my early experiences with Elizabeth. And then it was so weird. They turned the lights on and were like, "Go back to orchestra. No one's here to harm you yet." And so we went back to orchestra.
Wow. Have you ever processed that memory with her?
I never have, and you know, like
She's here. Bring Elizabeth out.
Oh my God! Don't do that to me. Good Lord. No, it's one of those things it's so sad, but that we really genuinely thought was normal.
God, that's so
I
crazy.
really did. Yeah.
It's interesting that a question about like your first crush can be woven in with trauma like that.
And
you know
woven
what I
in with
mean?
politics and society. It was all wrapped up, all together.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like one of the questions that we'd gotten on one of the earlier events was about, you know, if it felt the same writing high school as it did junior high and crush, and Sarah and I were like, no, because we're just writing about the good parts. But then the more we talked about it, the more I was like, well, no, I did start to think about the bad things that happened, and we didn't put it in the book, but I was thinking about that. Like so much of the positive stuff and our firsts that we were trying to insert into this story, there's the sort of soft or unspoken truth, which was that middle school and junior high is a really tough time to be alive. You know, that age is really tough, and we've gotten a lot of amazing questions over this month of events, and
It's my favorite every night when we get it. Not tonight though, because I don't know what happened to you guys in the questions, but well, it's someone in the audience every single night has asked, do you have any advice for me? I'm in middle school. Oh God. And I just think it's just so sweet. I mean, I don't even know if I'm equipped to answer or give advice because I haven't been in school since such a long time, but afterwards I've talked to some young people and I'm just like, just remember that you are great. Like you're awesome. You're at the beginning of your life, you know, have all this amazing stuff to look forward to, and just try to zoom out when you can, like when it feels miserable. Because I think that would be the advice that I would have wanted some adult to offer me. My mom did. She would tell the same story every time. She'd be like, you know, whatever. Amanda blah 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 was my bully in high school, and you know, I remember being on a date with your stepdad and looking amazing and showing up to this movie theater 10 years later, and you know, we drove up in our Camaro and Amanda was working at the theater and I thought, there, you got yours or whatever. And I'm like, that is not helpful. It's not helpful. I would love a job at a movie theater. Yeah, I don't want to wait 10 years, but also I would have loved to have a job at a movie theater. So like, just a reference over my head, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but that would be my advice. Do you have advice for any middle schoolers?
I feel like people always acted like adult problems were bigger and kid problems were kid problems, and I always just felt like no one took my pain seriously, especially as a young girl. I think that's really common, and so I think the thing I would say is that whatever you're going through is as valid and as painful, or possibly more painful than what the grown-ups in your life are going through. Because like, I have autonomy now when I have a problem. I can make a phone call. I can like consult with my wife. I have a bank account. You can solve a lot with a bank account. When you're a kid, you are so trapped. You have to go to school. You have to wake up. You have to like do all of these things. And I just think, that the pain is not small, and that pain will someday be processed, and it's okay if that's not today.
That's wonderful advice. Sarah, do you have middle school advice?
I guess my first thing is, do you have to go to junior high? Like, is that? Like,
I think legally, yes.
Do you have to? I don't know. It's like, it's really strange. Like, I'm not saying that I think, it seemed to me girls had a harder time in junior high than boys.
I don't know. Now that I have a son, I'm like,
well, I'm really worried about it too because I have a son, but I just mean like, it seemed like the boy, like I remember.
Now they care about men.
Yeah, it's true.
Two lesbians end up with sons, and we're just like, maybe we are being a little hard on men.
it's true.
It's true. I'm not joking. Like the other day, my mom, like, I don't know, it's just been like blood sport in my 44 years of just being like, can you believe this idiot? What a man. You know, we're always doing this thing. The other day, my mom made a comment about her living, breathing male partner, and I just was like, well, come on. You have to be so hard on him all the time. And I'm like, wow, where did that come from? Anyway, sorry. I did think that junior high was harder for girls. Maybe specifically our junior high was very hard for girls. It was so brutal. Like the girls were so mean. And the boys, they were different mean. They were like oblivious mean, you know? Like they never came to the aid of the women. Like that's what I wanted and I remember when I would be around guys, it was part of this like, I felt like I was like dating guys just as an excuse so I could hang out with the lesser mean people. Like I was like, I guess if I go out with Jimmy, then I can like walk home with Jimmy instead of that mean gang of bitches who I usually have to walk home with. You know, like, even though it sort of killed me to hold his sweaty palm and against mine for the
You
entire
needed some
walk,
relief.
I was just like, I'd rather hold Jimmy's hand and talk about whatever video game him and Corey play after school, because at least when we get to the garage, I can be like, bye, and then go into the, you know, fence and go through the yard and be like, oh, I'm free. Whereas with the girls, it was like, it was so all in. It was like we had to go to their houses after school. We had to like hope we weren't the one that was gonna get bullied that week or whatever. Like I remember, and I don't know if this is just like through the lens of queerness, but I also understood boys better. Like I remember feeling like, oh, boys are just like, what's Tara's problem? And I'd be like, exactly. You know, like I kind of felt like that. Like I wasn't like, yeah, what is Tara's problem? Like, why is she being such a bitch? Maybe I can convince her not to be such a bitch. Like I just would be like, oh yeah, why is Tara all up in, you know, whatever, this other girl's face. Like, I didn't understand what was driving the tension and drama of girls, because I didn't feel tension and drama in that way.
That's interesting.
I felt tension and drama, but it was because I wanted to, like, I didn't understand girls, and I wanted to understand them better, and I wanted to talk, and I wanted to look at them, and I wanted to, like, sit close to them and whatever. So when they were, like, fighting with each other all the time, I was like, well, can't we just sit quietly next to each other and watch movies and think about each other? Like, why does that have to be so complicated? So
is that your advice from middle school, to
I
just
guess
sit
so.
quietly for 3 years?
I would say that I guess so. I guess my
Not bad advice.
my advice is just sort of like, you know, if you can, find people who will meet you where you're at.
Yeah.
If it feels like it's too hard with the people you're hanging out with, they're not the right people for you. Sometimes being alone is better than being popular is another one that I think about a lot, because Tegan and I really tried hard to be popular, like, meaning not tried, but we accepted the rules of engagement for popularity. And then when we finally were like, no, we don't want to be popular, it's not worth it, our life got a lot better. We met the right people, we ended up making connections with friends, and also sort of like
We won the lottery. It was crazy. It was like, whoa.
friend lottery. We won the friend lottery.
No, I meant the real lottery.
No.
But I was joking, but it didn't land. It's okay.
I don't think I understand.
Because you were just like, we got rid of all of our friends and then everything got better.
Well,
We got this, we got that. It was like, we won the lottery. It's fine.
it is a little bit of like, if you are hanging in junior high, I feel like if you're hanging out with the wrong people, then you're repelling the right people. So I think that's because I think in elementary school everybody's just a little more chill with each other, but junior high is really where you start to figure out like who your people are.
Yeah.
Tilly, I have a question for you. It's not on this list.
Oh no, that's okay.
but-
I can probably answer it.
I know you will be able to. I'm hoping, because I've promised my partner I would ask this question. So Sophia loves graphic novels. She loves comics and loves your work. And when she was reading Crush, she finished the book and it was so sweet. She turned to me and she was just like, I just love this book. I can't wait for the third one. And I was like, what? And she's like, junior high is grade 7, 8, 9. So what about grade 9? And I was like, oh no, it's a duology. Like, Tilly's, doing this whole thing. She was so upset.
Oh my god.
She's just like, I don't fucking understand what you're saying right now. Like, this is insane. This is whatever. And I was like, oh, go join all the people who keep bringing up that we didn't get a second season of High School. Do I look like I'm in charge here? But she did have a question for you.
Yes.
She wants to know how you draw your comics. And she asked me, and I was like, I don't know. And she's like, you don't know how does she do it in a computer? Does she hand draw? I was like, oh my God, I'm a horrible narcissist. I've never asked.
It's not that interesting.
How do you draw comics?
So I did this book a little differently from my other books. This is the only book I've ever done that is all in pencil. So I have a box of all the pencils it took to draw Junior High and Crush. It's maybe like 35 pencils that are down to this small. I think I did this is like a whole pencil. So I drew the book in spreads. So I have a giant piece of watercolor paper because it's a little toothy, so it picks up the pencil in a nice way. And I did the initial draft of the book on an iPad because I could do it really fast. And then I print out those pieces of paper, I tape it to the back of my watercolor paper, put it on a light pad, and then just pick up my pencil and sort of vaguely trace over what the early plan was, but I really try to break free from my initial draft, and I usually turn the light pad off halfway through the page, and I'm like, just trust yourself and make it, you know what it is. You know what this page is. And then I draw the whole page. I get a student of mine to scan it because I need a really big scanner, and it's 30 minutes away by car, and there's a lot of snow, and I sometimes can't get it, so the student comes in the snow, and I take the pages, scan them.
This is fascinating.
That's why
I
in the
love
back of this
answer.
book, it's
Wow.
dedicated to Clover. Clover scanned every single page in this book. Any kind of weather, Clover did it. I live very rurally. And then the color is done digitally and done very quickly. Oh my God, do I slap the color on these pages? Because Walter was I don't know, a week old, and I was coloring this book, and I would just have him on my boob here. Sorry kids, but it's true. And then I'd have the iPad here, and I'd just be blue, red, bah, done. Next page, purple, done, bah. Just really, really quick.
That's so cool.
But I have all these giant pieces of paper covered in pencil.
You know what you should do?
What?
You should film this for YouTube. I'm just saying.
I do have all the time lapse footage of working on these.
Shut
Of the colors and stuff. I don't know, that's like export it from the
I know
iPad
you.
or something. It sounds like a thing forever.
That's amazing. Thank you for
Yeah.
that answer. That was incredible.
Yeah, lots of pencil nubbins. Lots of pencil nubbins.
Another question that came in tonight, Sarah, what inspired you to create this graphic novel?
Honestly,
What did inspire you?
it was we had just sold high school our memoir, and then they reached back out and said, hey, you want to talk to the folks who make graphic novels and kids books? They want you to maybe take this idea and make it into a graphic novel for kids. I mean, it was like we didn't even have to come up with the idea, they just asked us to do it. And then we didn't think about it really that much for like a couple of years. We went about writing high school, we did a big book tour, there was a pandemic, as you may recall, and then we were like, what are we gonna do? And then we were like, I guess we could start working on that graphic novel, and that was when the whole situation with Tegan figuring out that we were not putting together like a scary Euphoria style book about every
We should talk
terrifying-
about that because we could maybe get together and do that.
Should we do that?
Maybe I should do an adult book. Yeah, it doesn't work, I don't think, in reverse. But but yeah, then we started working on this. So like, in some ways, it was a bit of a journey because we knew sort of roughly what we were supposed to do. But I think it's like a whole. I would never have imagined it turning out this way. And also, you were the first person that our editors had said, here are some ideas. They asked us for ideas of like graphic novels that we love, which I think in turn would inspire them to make some suggestions and style, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Or they might have just had you in their mind the whole time, but they basically said, here's the list. Tilly, you were number one. I think we both read Spinning, and we're like, this is the person, why would we even consider anyone else? We loved your work so much.
And I said yes right away.
And then we were
Didn't
all
even
like,
have any doubts.
and then we were like this, and then we were like that.
And they were like that. I'm in there. I'm one of the clowns.
Well, one of the questions that this amazing audience submitted was about what our favorite graphic novel of yours was, and Spinning was really amazing, as you talked about earlier. I'm curious because one of the other questions is about if we will write another book, a continuation of our memoir, high school, and talk. And so I'm curious, like when you make something that's so deeply personal, like you did Spinning. Well, actually, this question it just popped into my head, a variation of this, but I'm reading this book, Consent, right now. I don't know if, I'm blanking on the author's name, but she wrote a book in her early life about dating a man who was way older than her, and then now has written another book reprocessing that.
Oh, I heard about
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
It's really brilliant. I'm really enjoying it. But I had this moment when I was listening to it last night where I was like, how wild to think like you would write a book about an experience you have and then like 30 years later write another book being like, I don't know what the fuck I was talking about. You know what I mean? Do you ever have that?
I've had that thought. I've literally thought to myself, I think I'll make another ice skating book someday. Because there's like again, there's so much that I didn't put in there, especially in my like very early years skating with like this one specific coach that like a lot of stuff went down, but we didn't have time. I would love to tackle it again, and it's something I tell my students about constantly because it's really hard as a young artist to realize that you don't just get one try with your ideas, especially your precious ideas. You get your first try, and then you can literally do it again. No one, like publishers will say to you, like, wait, you already did an ice skating book, don't do another ice skating book. You don't have to listen to them. You can do whatever you want again and again. I think often about the confidence of male authors who tend to come back to the same themes again and again. I think about Murakami especially, where like all his books have these same themes again and again. And I had this moment where it's like, wait, if he can talk about earlobes and cooking in every book, I can talk about like my trauma and building houses or whatever in all of my books too. So yeah, I'd love to come back and tread on the ground again. And I think everyone should feel the confidence to be able to do that.
I love that answer. I think that's really amazing. I think that's really cool. I love also the idea of, you've gone through this massive shift in perspective by having a child too.
Yeah.
And this idea, like, I remember when Sarah said that her and Stacey were pregnant with Sid, and Sarah it was like a throwaway line, but she was like, I wonder how it'll change my art or whatever. And I'm like, I think it changes not just your art, it changes you as a person. Perspective changes. So I think revisiting stuff is interesting. So that would be my answer is, are we gonna release another book, continuing our story after high school. We're writing 2 books right now. Like we definitely want to continue in this space, but I don't know that it'll be so chronological feeling. But I do feel really excited by exploring more things that have happened.
Yeah,
And
there's
putting-
never like a right way to process a memory or experience. There's like the way you're capable of processing it. And when you're older and you're different, it's gonna shed new light on it, which makes it new again and new to you.
Oh my God, the place where I live, there's one vintage store and it's called New to You. How many pencils did you go through with this one?
I remember this page. Mostly this was me not wanting to draw the interior of the car. And I really got away with it. No legs. No, like the console where the parents are up there, no. Gone, just pencil.
I love it. It's our favorite. Tilly, as always, I feel like I get to this every night. It's just, you're such a pleasure.
No, you're such a pleasure.
And seriously, like this little tour we've been doing, like every author that's moderated has been amazing and inspiring, and every single one has said, you guys know that you literally worked with the best illustrated cartoonists. Like you couldn't have chosen, like you usually you would do books with other people subpar, and then you would earn the right to get to work with someone like Tilly Walden. And I just hope you know every night we say, like, we get it, we know, we lucked out. We probably can't even do another graphic novel because how on earth could we ever work with anyone but you? It was just such a pleasure to collaborate with you and I mean, we're gonna see you tomorrow at Comic-Con. I don't know, I'm acting like, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, like, I hope nothing happens between us.
We'll be okay, yeah. No, queers have to stay
scary or
together.
weird at all. There's nothing ominous.
No one's gonna kidnap us.
No, but it's been an honor to collaborate with you.
Well, you did get lost in Times Square and Tegan did have to go.
Oh
I did,
my
it was
God, you
really
guys, it's
scary.
so funny. So then we were like, okay, vehicle's picking us up, like 3:30, whatever. Tilly texts and is like, I'm outside, I cannot get into your hotel. I cannot figure out how to get into your hotel.
I'm at the Hershey store,
Yeah, I'm at
same
the
thing.
Hershey store. So I'm like, hold on, I'm coming down there. By the way, we only stay in Times Square because we're doing press and events, and it's just we're close, so we wouldn't choose it, okay? Although I have to say, I get a real kick out of being in Times Square, so I'm not a hater. But anyway, so I'm like, hold on, Tilly, I'm coming for you. So I go downstairs, and I look across the street, and there's indeed a Hershey store, and I just did not see Tilly, and I'm like, I'm outside, I can't see you. And then I'm like, I think you just need to cross the street. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, 3 minutes, because it takes that long to cross fucking whatever the busy street is called. And she's like, okay, I'm outside the Marriott. And I'm like, looking around, and I'm like, oh my God. And then I go running up the street, and I'm like, this Hershey store is an entire block. I'm just like, sent to somewhere else. Yeah. And so then I'm like, no, sorry, come back to the Hershey store. I go back to the Hershey store. The whole time I'm thinking, does she not have Google? Like, put in our address of our hotel. Anyway, but it's not her fault, it's our fault. So then I witnessed an altercation and a car crash and men throwing things at each other, and the police get involved. Someone shoulder checked me so hard, but actually my neck was sore and now it's not, so it reversed the damage. And this whole time I'm scanning. Where's Tilly? And I finally see Tilly, and I'm like, there she is. And Tilly looks over at me, she's like, why are you staying down here? Why are you staying down here? This is horrible. And I'm like, bring it in. Anyway, it was a total delight. But the 3 of us got here early so we could sign books. They're all signed, they're at the backs. Please buy a book for yourself, for a young person in your life. Keep buying books. We all love books, and it just means the world to us if you buy our books. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
For having us. Goodbye.
Awesome.